I can't. I can't imagine to this day where they had enough air for us to, 9 guys in there and sucking on air for 4 or 5 hours.
Because didn't you, once you hit 10,000, you had to put the oxygen on?
12,000, yeah.
And there were 9 guys in the plane? Jeez Louise. I thought there were like 6.
No, there was 10 at the beginning, but then when the fires got taken out of it, they only needed one waste gunner instead of 2.
Right. Yeah, we missed the exciting part.
Boring. Here we go again. All they're doing is shooting at us.
Yeah, something different every time. From then on, I picked up a crew and we started flying the missions as they would. We lived in these Nissen huts. I think there were about 24 people in one, just those metal things that, with a bed in it, and one up and down, and the old sergeant who had been there since the war began, he would be the one that stayed awake at night and would come in maybe 1:30 and 2 o'clock in the morning and he'd say, "Oh, cheers and corpses. This is the list for today." And then he'd read the names of the ones that had to get out of the bed and get dressed, and the rest of them.
Oh my God.
And then we'd ride our bikes or walk down to the flight, to the place where you get your breakfast, which was awful always. And they had some major that would show us where we were going to go that day and the flight path and give us all the information on what the weather was and where the ground forces were that were shooting up at you, and tell you how to go around that or what you're supposed to do. And then we'd go down and pick up our stuff. We always had a bag, a canvas bag. We put all of our stuff in, maps and a 45 pistol, and I forget what all was in there. But everyone would carry one of those on, and then the truck would pick us up, or a Jeep usually. 9 of us would get on a Jeep. Somebody would drive it, so there'd be 10 of us on a Jeep, sitting on the front, sitting everywhere.
A little squished.
He'd take you out to your plane, because the planes were spread out all over, because they didn't want 2 of them to get hit. If the British came, or the Germans came over and dropped a bomb, they didn't want them to get more than one plane. So then we'd go out there and they had a tent there, and so we'd go in there and then I went out and warmed up the engine for about 20 minutes. Everybody did that. And then you come back in and come back down and just go in there and wait until it was time to get ready to go and climb. And it was fun because of this guy that had come back. He was an older, probably he was 26 or 27. He was an old man, so but he would tell us all the jokes and about all of the things that happened and when he was in Hawaii and all, and he just had people laughing all the time. He was unique. The signal came to man your planes, and we'd climb in the plane, and then they'd tell you to start your engines, and we'd start the engines, and then you get in line and run out to the takeoff runway, and you line up. They were wide because you had two of B-17s side by side, so every 30 seconds one would go. Then this one, in each group, and then we'd get 12 planes. You'd have to go out and climb to about 8,000 or 10,000 feet, and then you just fly in a circle. Or the first plane would start the circle, and then you'd come and have to catch up and catch on with. And that was one of the difficult parts when you had 6 or 8 of them on there, and you had to find your position, and you had to fly close. So, and then after that, circling, why we head for the takeoff point, and then whoever was leading everything was groups of 12. So when they get the group together, and they would somehow get all lined up, not close either, some of them, but anyhow, you were supposed to be over a certain location at a certain time, and so you just follow them essentially and fly. Just keep tight. We used to fly real tight because we used to practice a lot, and there was a guy, Underwood, and I used to see who could get the closest to the plane with his other plane with his wing, and you didn't do any performing on your own. You stayed on that line going to the target and get over the target, and the guy that was the bombardier, all he did was flick a switch, and all 12 bombs, we had 12 500-pound bombs in the thing, and they would all drop at once. And the whole group of 12 would do that, and God knows where they landed. When we got back, we made it back one time, the second time over Berlin, I think it was, and we lost one engine, so we only had 3 on the way back over Germany, and then when we were getting, fortunately, near what the hell is it? The big pond, the English Channel, I guess, yeah. It was, and then another engine went out there, and so we had to find a place to land before too long. So, because, and the guys dropped everything that was in the plane to take as much weight away as possible, and we got to some place, I don't know where it was, but we found a place to land. And another time we made it at home and thought everything was fine, and the weather was really lousy, and we landed kind of long on the runway, and we didn't know that our hydraulics had been shot out, and we went off the end of the runway at 70 miles an hour, and up on the hill, some of the guys that work on the planes, they had a little cabin up there, like so they could stay out of the cold weather, and when they saw us coming up that hill, and I've never seen people fly like they did. That door's open, and they just all went wham, and we of course turned a little bit to the right and climbed a hill and down over another one, and then I ground looped it, and it stayed there and on the hill, and we got out, and they sent a truck to get us, and they came and got the plane itself eventually, and took it back and worked on it and fixed it up again. Those guys that took care of the planes, they were gems. Boy, they'd get on it, and we came back one time with over 100 holes in our plane, and you go right to work on it and patch them up, because it was just that light metal. You could poke your fist through it, I think, if you had a good strong fist. I don't know which ones made it and which ones didn't. But when I got there, the fighters were all, you rarely saw a German fighter, because we had our P-51s then, and they were magnificent. Whoever did that really saved the country, because the Germans were just knocking planes down right and left, and if they hadn't come along, it took an awful beating too. That plane, they had equipment that could put that right on your nose. You come up, you know you're going to get hit, because they would explode all these 88 millimeters, what they used, and this one place, Lutzkendorf, it was a oil refinery, and they had 400 guns around that thing. And of course, that's what we wanted to go over to eradicate. It was good. And you got it going in and going away. They were really just right on the target, and you could raise or drop maybe 100 feet or so, and they'd still be right on target. It was uncanny, but that was when we got probably the most holes. But on another time we had one of the what the hell, the legs.
Oh yeah.
the
With the wheels.
One of them wouldn't come down, and so we landed with one wheel, and
Oh my God.
and of course when it slowed down enough, why then it started. We were all over that place with nothing you can do about it. That was an interesting one. Oh, a lot of it's just weather, the bad weather. You couldn't get back to your own base because you couldn't see the land, so you'd have to go somewhere else and land and
Did you know where you were landing?
spend overnight. The navigator did. He told us where to go, and we were one time we landed right near where Shakespeare was born or lived, but all in all, you had to be lucky. That's all, because you got shot at a lot, and they could hit you. I think half of the time you'd come back with holes in some holes, but nothing like over 100. And not one got hit. Not one of the guys. The tail gunner. They had metal jackets to wear, and he had taken his off and put it on the floor. He was kneeling on it, and that's what saved him from getting hit in the knees. And but it was we were very fortunate. And there was the one at Christmas. This was on the 24th. We were out bombing on the 20th. This is during the Battle of the Bulge, and that's when we flew 8 missions in 10 days, just one after the other, and I went to the major and said, "What the hell are you doing, trying to get us killed?" And he gave us a 3-day pass. No, a week. I think we were off a week. We went to my co-pilot went along. He's not Catholic, but we went to the midnight mass and came out of there about 1:15 or 1:30, I guess it was, and the sky was just magnificent. It was so bright and light blue. It was beautiful, and so we were there. Well, that was Christmas Day then, and we stayed there till afternoon. And in the meantime, the colonel who was in charge of our group, he put turkey and all of the good stuff in a Jeep and drove it all the way over to where we were, and we had already eaten the turkey that was they had plenty there. So I don't ever know what he did with the rest of it. And then we went home then, and that was I'd flown a couple of times without the regular crew, so when we got to 35, I could go home, but I didn't want to leave the guys that I'd been flying with all the while. They flew a couple missions, and they went home, and I was still there waiting. That wasn't. Somebody said that's not too smart, but anyhow, then things slowed down, and then it was all over in May, and we got the word to come to Washington, so we flew from there to D.C., and that's where they eliminated us. We were finished. But you could stay on as I'm forgetting how that was. Anyhow, I stayed on for a few years, and then I think they said you're finished or something, or no longer required. I don't remember. I had all that stuff somewhere. I don't even know where it is. But it was an experience, I must say that.